Hi guys, welcome back to the Going with the Flow podcast. Today is episode 2 and we're going to be talking about going solo in the creative field, which will basically cover freelance and if you do want to go self-employed, which I know a lot of you have asked about, so I thought, why not do an episode on it? And today I'm actually joined with Jacob Flowers, who, if any of you don't know, is my brother and
the name kind of gives it away, I think.
Yeah, but not everyone knows my second name, so I thought I'd just say that.
Fair enough.
Because obviously most people recognise me as Flo as well. Like a lot of you guys call me Flo, message and say hi Flo. So yeah, my full name is Yasmin Flowers for anyone who didn't know. And yeah, Jacob's worked in the creative field, so I thought it'd be great to have him on because he's previously been a freelancer and knows a lot more about it than me because I'm sort of just starting out and in that period of my career. So yeah, I thought we'd have a little conversation about that. So for the listeners, I was going to say viewers then, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Well, I guess viewers as well if this is going on YouTube. Hopefully not, because I've got more of a face for radio or podcast. But yeah, as Yasmin says, I'm Yasmin's brother. I'm 2 years older than Yasmin, so I'm 24, going on 25, but don't really want to mention that. Just to give a bit of background on me then, so I went to University of Leeds to study media, so I'm sort of in that creative field with Yasmin. I know you studied fashion. Mine was more writing, which was kind of boring, but when I left university, I realised I had a passion for creating. So I upskilled myself. I took a year out of university just to have a break. A lot of people do the same thing. I learned Photoshop and Premiere Pro because I had a passion for video editing. I struggled to get a job, like a lot of people maybe listening or watching this can sympathise with. Off the back of me doing freelance for a year and a half, it landed me a job in the career that I wanted. The company that I work for is called May Sport. Previously, I went under Flowers Films, but I wasn't really a company. I was just a freelancer. And I would recommend to all freelancers out there, just call yourself by your name. But anyway, we can get into all that stuff now. But yeah, that's the introduction of me. Anything else I should tell people, or do you think that's okay?
I guess, in terms of starting out then, let's just go rewind back to this very start of your journey as a freelancer. So, what made you want to explore freelance as a career, path to go down? Where did that come from?
Yeah, I mean, it's a strange one. When I was at university, YouTube was really starting to pop off in terms of creators. You had Casperly, all these vloggers and things. Basically, whether you're watching this and you're a graphic designer or videographer or whatever field it is, my passion was video. I just developed a passion for it. So I left university, bought my first camera. And the reason I got into freelance mainly is because I thought, like, the main thing about your channel is building a portfolio. I thought if I build a video portfolio, even if in the future I might not be a full-time video editor, that might be something that I don't want to do. It gets you foot in the door, and it shows employers, oh, hang on, he's actually doing something, and it shows initiative. So that's the main reason I chose to be a freelancer, because not that I struggled to get a job. I was having interviews, and I probably could have got one, but I just think it's something for you to focus on, and at the same time it shows employers that you're proactive, and it does make you stand out, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, going back to that, building a portfolio, if any of you are out there and are considering freelance as an option, that is when it's a great time to build, clients and projects, because I know a lot of you say, how do I create a portfolio if I haven't had previous experience? Well, that's a perfect time to do it. I think the main thing as well for me starting out going into freelance as a career path, I think confidence is a huge thing. And I think people will, whoever's listening to this, you might be considering going into freelance, will question, how do you actually start and how do you build that client list? How do you, network? Do you have any tips or pieces of advice for people who might not feel that confident to just go out and connect with loads of people on LinkedIn or send out loads of emails and they don't have anything, they haven't had any previous projects and they're just, starting from a blank canvas? Do you have any?
Yeah, so initially I wouldn't go into it with the mindset of I am going to be a freelancer and I'm going to get loads of clients and make loads of connections. So I didn't start off as a freelancer. What happens is, say if you have a passion for graphic design or video or whatever it is, I would say just do something in your spare time after work and just dedicate some time to it and just do things you enjoy. Like I started off, for example, making just videos, sports videos. So that's all it is. It's experimenting. You're never going to be the best. And even when you are the best, there's still going to be someone out there who's better than you. Just have fun That's what I would say, and don't focus on it. And then that will come over time. Basically, I had fun with a friend I met after university. We filmed some just content together that we enjoyed. That just happened to get noticed through going to an event, and someone was like, "Oh, well, I need a video.
Yeah.
So would you mind helping me out?" And then it just builds up from there.
Yeah.
So as all the motivational people saying, you probably heard this loads of times, just take it step by step. Like, don't think too much, like, and worry about the future and how you're going to get clients. Just have fun with it, experiment, and you might find that you don't like it. But if you're having fun with it, that's the main thing I would say, and the clients will come. Say if you're doing graphic design and video, you've done 6 months just having fun with it, then you've got a portfolio. Even if it's not client work, it's still work that you've done that you can send on email to potential clients, or put it on social media, create a page, and then people will be like, oh, maybe I want that.
And I think that is crucial, you know, especially if you are wanting to go into marketing or graphic design, whatever it is in the creative industry. I think having a social presence is key. There might be that one person who watches it, who then messages you on LinkedIn and gives you that opportunity. And that's all it takes, is that one opportunity to get your foot in the door. If anyone is sort of at that starting phase of going into freelance, I would definitely say create a social page. Just start putting out content that you enjoy and document what you make. You know, if you don't have any previous projects or clients that you've done work for, create your own, you know, fake projects as such. If you're a marketer, do a social strategy and explain what results you've got.
Or just, you know, express yourself. It doesn't have to be boring client work. Especially if you're in the creative field. At the end of the day, people work with people. So I'm not saying you have to jump in front of camera and make videos. Some people are, you know, just enjoy writing or just doing stuff in their own time. But like Yasmin says, create a page, maybe just start your own blog, just do something to document your progress. And it's not going to be the best thing in the world. The stuff that I look back at, the stuff I made 4 years ago, and in retrospect, it's terrible. But it got me to where I am today, and you just you just grow and grow and grow. So it doesn't matter. For example, I work for a sports marketing company. When we put an ad out for work experience, and we'll get people just email in general saying, have you got any work? The biggest tip I would say is a lot of people email and just say, oh, I'm really passionate about sports. I'm passionate. We know you're passionate. Everyone's passionate. Everyone wants a job. But what have you got to show? Started with a couple of sentences like, I would really want to work for your company, but here's what I have done. And it's not the best thing in the world, but someone will look at that. And now I'm in the shoes of a recruiter in a sense, because I take people on, and I think if I look at someone's LinkedIn, or they've got even if it's just a social or a blog, one blog it can be, and I read it and I think that's good, then I'll give them a shot.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back to my first TikTok, it was absolutely terrible. It was one of the classic
They still are,
ones.
aren't they?
Yeah, well, shut up. Yeah, your classic points in TikTok, which aren't bad. I'm not saying that. I think the font was like where the logo was, so you couldn't even see the text, and it was just awful. But you will pick it up as you go along. The more, I just headbutted the mic there. The more you do, the more confident you'll get, and the more skills you'll gain from it.
Some people just aren't that way. I would say, as a side note, some people just aren't that way inclined. For example, they might create amazing graphics or an amazing video, but they might not be naturally an extrovert. They just want to do the transaction, be nice, and then. So I would say for those people, I wouldn't worry too much. But obviously, the more you can put yourself out there, the better. When I first picked up a camera and I made a YouTube video, I couldn't even speak into a camera, and that actually helped me. It helps you speak to clients when I did get a job, because I had that experience of actually communicating with people. So yeah, I mean, obviously it's so difficult at the start, because you graduate university, or you've graduated college, and you're just a small fish in a massive pond, and it sometimes it's hard to throw yourself out there, but you really need to just contact as many people as possible. And also, obviously, a lot of the stuff, which we'll probably get into the financial side of it, you might have to do a lot of work for free. But don't think of it as a transaction. Think of it as an opportunity. And I'd say time is more key than money, really, in the connections that you make, because over time it will pay off. For example, you might assess a 2-week experience in London and think that might cost me a bit of money and it's free. But depending on the company and the role, that might be invaluable experience to push you forward. Yeah. But obviously, also you have to be careful, because there is some bad people out there that will just take advantage of people who are looking for experience. So assess it, maybe try something for a day or two. If you're not feeling it and it's free, just leave. There's no pressure. When I first started out freelance, it was frustrating. There is that stint where you have to do free work, but I think to level that out, where you think I'm not getting paid and I'm struggling, you might be working part-time or something in a job you don't like. Make sure you're doing stuff you enjoy. If you're not earning money and then you're just doing stuff you don't enjoy, that's just going to multiply and you're going to burn out. So make sure the free stuff you are doing, number one, make sure it's if it is a bit boring, make sure it's worth your time and you're upskilling, you're learning things. Or if you're not and it's a personal thing, make sure you're having fun with it.
Going on to the finance side of things, because I know that's a big worry and a massive step when starting out on this journey. So do you have any tips for how to, prepare for maybe not having that regular income or it being quite up and down, what to expect from going into the freelance world?
I think it all depends on your situation. If you're lucky enough to graduate university or be at college and live at home, you haven't got you probably still have some things to pay for, but you have less responsibility. I would say obviously you might have to make some sacrifices. That's the key thing. So maybe less socialising with your mates. There might be less pubbing and less spending on clothes. Try and save and put some money aside. If you just graduated university, or you're at college, then you probably, I would say, get a part-time job or get something where there's some sort of stable income and then do the rest of your videography or whatever you're doing on the side. Or if you're lucky enough to have some savings, just go for it, but be very sensible. And the thing I would say is you don't always have to, if it is video, I mean, graphic design, luckily you've not got many outgoings because you just need a laptop and subscription. But if it's something that requires spending, just make sure you do your research. And don't overspend because you are just starting out, and just think about the type of clients and the type of work you're going to be getting. Don't think, I need all the best equipment and everything. Just work with what you've got. That's what I would say. But yeah, I mean, financially, obviously, you just build up over time. But you just have to manage your expenses, especially when you're self-employed. I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast around registering for self-employment. A lot of people out there, obviously, maybe after this, if you've got any questions after the podcast, just let Yasmin know, and maybe we could do an episode where we just answer people's questions. But yeah, obviously you have to go through that process of register. If you decide to make the leap or do it on the side, you still have to register as self-employed on the government website. So make sure you're tracking your invoices, what money's coming in, and also your expenses. So if you buy anything that relates to your business, could be a pencil, could be a camera, could be Photoshop, make sure you're writing all that down and keeping track, because you will need it at the end of the year. And obviously, if you make over a certain amount, you have to pay tax on your profits. But yeah, I'd just say be careful, but also don't worry too much, because when you're first starting out, I don't think there is a lot of investment needed, really. Just work with what you've got. But again, depends what you're doing freelancing.
For anyone who doesn't know about how I got into Flow and sort of my freelance journey at the minute, I sort of created Flow and worked on Flow alongside having a full-time job, which if you can do it, I would. But, I think for freelance, probably not, because it's just too much and you're not going to be able to manage it effectively and you just get burnt out. But Flow was more of a side community project, so it enabled me to build that platform. And then now I sort of do part-time freelance jobs as well as doing Flow as well. So yeah, I think if you can get a part-time job, even if it's at your local supermarket, or a bar or whatever, it just gives you that steady income and those extra hours to work on your freelance. And I think the next point I want to jump onto is finding your niche, because especially in marketing, because if you are wanting to be a marketing freelancer, it's vast. There is just, email marketing specialist, copywriting. You could do freelance for content creation. I've just headbutted the mic again.
At least people will be able to hear you, which is good.
Yeah, I guess.
So.
And yeah, there's so much, and I think it can be so overwhelming when you've done a marketing degree, or even if you haven't and you just want to get into marketing. What are you actually going to provide as a service, and do you want to find like a niche in the marketing field that you want to specialize in? There is a lot of things that you can offer as a marketer, but I think it is sometimes great to focus on one thing and maybe be skilled in one thing and offer that as your primary service, because otherwise, if you focus on trying to be perfect to everything, it's just not feasible, especially in marketing. I
mean, I had this problem where some people might have this listening or watching, where you just want to learn as much as possible, because I think it's hard to niche down when you're first starting, because when you are at this age between 18 and 25 or 16 and 25, however old you are, could be even older, you still don't know what to do. Some people still don't know what they want to do or specialise in when they're 30, which is slightly concerning, but it's the way it goes. We're humans in that sense. We like to try different things. But I would say, I think it's great advice to say as quickly as you can find your niche. That's good, because there's so much options out there. the more niche you go, the better. Very specific. But also, I would say when you're first starting out, you don't really know what you enjoy or what your niche really is. So I would say try loads of different things. But maybe start with writing down on a piece of paper what your real interests are. Mine was sport. So yes, I could essentially do anything. I could do food. If someone says, do you want to do a wedding? I could do a wedding. But if you're really passionate about sport, just think, I'm going to be a sport graphic designer. I'm going to be a sport, and then even bypass sport, football. Actually, out of all the sports, I enjoy football the most, so I specialise in football. So if you can niche down, brilliant. What I would also say is there is an argument, even with like industry professionals now, when you get to a late stage of your career, people say, is it really harmful being a jack of all trades? And people really say, oh, you need to niche down and you need to be an expert at one thing. What I also would say is that people have argued that it's good to be a jack of all trades, because then it's better when you get to a management level, because you've got an overall better, even though you might not be really, really good at one thing, say coding or website or whatever it is, but you will be well-rounded individual who's got an understanding of all the different elements of marketing and how it all combines. So I think, again, great to niche down if you're self-employed, but when you're first starting out, don't worry, just experiment and try and find your niche if you can. What I would also say is you learn by doing. So I was a victim of this. You can go down a rabbit hole of watching hundreds, if not thousands, and I have watched thousands of YouTube tutorials, how to be a graphic designer, how to be a videographer, and just watching, there's so many now doing YouTube channels, including yourself, that teach people how to be good at something. And honestly, like, you can just keep watching. You can get into this rhythm of just watching and never doing. And you can watch a tutorial of someone setting up some lighting equipment or making an amazing video, and in your head, because you've watched so many, you think, I can do that, that's easy. When you actually go and do it, it's a different story. And you will make mistakes, but you grow and learn from them mistakes. And it's a whole different ball game when you have to do a graphic, or you have to do a video, or you have to do copywriting for a client in a set time period on a deadline, and the client might even be with you watching you actually do it. It's a lot different from you watching someone else do your tutorial or making it in your own bedroom. So what I would say is balance learning with doing. And that's a good thing about your channel and anyone else who's looking to set up a channel. Maybe watch a YouTube tutorial, and instead of watching it passively, watch it actively. What have I learned from this video? What can I take away from this video and then implement it and do it straight after? Let me make something. Like, I've learned this trick. Okay, cool. Let's go and create something on Photoshop now. Let's go and write about it. Let's go and document it. And you can go back, and if you forget it, you've got a video, and you can show employers, and it's all part of the process. So yeah, key tip from me: start doing. Just start doing as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, I massively agree with that, and I think that will build your, the skill that you're trying to learn as well. Like, I get a lot of questions about InDesign, how to get started, because I know when you first open InDesign, it looks just scary, to be completely honest, and I felt the exact same. And you do just think, I'm gonna not do anything on here, and I'll just watch a bunch of YouTube tutorials and I'll be fine. But as soon as you get over that barrier of, right, I'm actually gonna go on this platform and have a play around, start creating mini projects, you'll just build from there. And I think, exactly what Jacob said, do the work as well as learning.
Yeah, and I think instead of copying, like, for example, you could watch a YouTube tutorial of someone who made a video or did a graphic. Instead of just following along, which is really helpful, follow along, see how they made the graphic, do that as well, take something from it, follow along, create it. But then also, instead of just doing that and think, right, I've learned that now, I know how to do that trick, take that away and actually use your initiative and create something off your own back that you've not copied or followed along. And I think that's key as well, is taking something but then thinking, what can I add to this? How can I make this better? What would I have done differently? Because then you're not just copying someone else, you're developing your own style. Because let's be honest, there's so many freelancers out there in so many different industries, in the same industry. You need to stand out. So make sure you're constantly putting your own creative twists and thoughts on things, or you won't really truly have your own artistic style, or you won't have a USP really, or a niche to separate you from other people, because you'll all just be doing the same thing.
Definitely. And just going back to people starting out, and for those listeners who are considering going freelance, I think one of the main things is what skills does it actually, what skills you actually need to be a freelancer and to be a successful one. Obviously not straight away, because as we've already said, it will take time, but there's definitely a few key skills that I've noticed that you definitely need. From my point of view, I think organization has been a massive skill that you need, because especially when, at the beginning, maybe not so, because you probably won't have that many clients, but depending on the project as well, if you have a huge project, you're going to need to manage those timelines effectively. You might have a deadline, and you just really need to have that organization, have that planner, have Notion as an app or Trello, and make sure that you are managing every project that you're doing, you're tracking the hours and all of those things. I mean, we could do a whole episode on this, but
yeah,
it's so important.
I'd say do your research. That's a great point to be fair you've raised. There's so many helpful apps. So in terms of apps, organization apps or softwares you can get on your computer, a lot of it's free as well. We've mentioned stuff for graphic designers like Canva, Anchor we're using to publish this podcast. Honestly, I discovered something the other day at work called Zapier, which is like where you can synchronize all your social posts and like create chains. So, for example, you can set a thing on your computer that says, if I post on LinkedIn with this word, then it sets to do something else on Instagram, and then sends an email. And so, there's basically the point is there's so many useful tools. QuickBooks is great for anyone looking to go self-employed. That isn't free, but it's only $9.99 or $7.99, which is quite affordable. So just Google great apps for self-employed people or whatever, and just do your research. TikTok's good for that as well. There's loads of videos I've seen on TikTok, people helping out in terms of tips for useful software and apps you can use. So yeah, I think that's key, just being organised and just doing your research. Make sure you've done your research.
Yeah, because as well, this is probably a bit more further ahead in your journey, when you're a bit more established, you've got a few clients on board, but you don't want to be letting people down, and you don't want to overpromise on the delivery of a project if you're not going to be able to fulfill that. So yeah, I think it's so important. And I think, to be honest, as a marketer as well, that element of organisation does go into an in-house role. It's not just for freelance. I think if you are wanting to go into marketing, it is very important to be organised, especially if you're managing various campaigns, or, I was working on an influencer marketing campaign, and there was just, about 20 different influencers that I had to keep track of, and it can be a lot. And I think, if you are organised, and if you get into that routine of being organised, then it can be a massive help, and it's just a great skill to have. But yeah, do you have any other key skills, or do you think there's any other skills that are needed to be a freelancer?
I think obviously communication's key, but again, if it's just a purely, obviously a lot of stuff's moved online now in terms of client meetings on Zoom. Everything's remote. You might even you could easily be a freelancer without meeting people in person.
Yeah.
Personally, I wouldn't recommend it, 'cause it's good to build that personal relationship with someone. But you can build that on Zoom. I would say key from me, just when you're first starting out, is like know your worth as well, because at the end of the day, you might not think you're very good, and you might not be as good as someone who's at the top level. But I bet you any money most people out there who are just starting out are taking advice or comparing themselves to people who've been freelancing for 20 years or 10 years plus. You're just starting out, but what I would say is be confident in yourself, know your worth, and even if your work isn't the best in the world, let's be honest, that client is hiring you for a reason, and like they've got a certain budget. They're not expecting it to be Steven Spielberg or so still. Know your worth, and don't just always take stuff for free, and just be confident in your ability. I know it can be hard to be confident at the start, because you always think, oh, I'm not good enough, and this work's not great, and I'm doubting myself because I'm not there yet. But when I look back now at some of the projects I did, yes, it wasn't the best, but for that person it was amazing, and they would have happily paid for it, but I did it for free. So yeah, again, it comes down to that, and it all comes from organisation and doing your research and everything like that. Like, you just need to be quite savvy with it, really.
Yeah, and I think from my personal journey, I'm at the very start. I'm just starting out doing freelance projects. I've only just taken on my first ever one. And I think that is probably one of the most difficult parts, is one, knowing your worth, and self-doubt, because you take on a project, and I definitely think, am I good enough to do this? Am I charging the right amount? And I think, you know, we could go into this, because charging for different projects and what you're doing is just, I think it is really tricky, especially when you're starting out, because you don't really have anything to compare it to. But I think for that, if you are struggling with where to start and where to charge, just have a look online and try and get advice from other freelancers who are just starting out, and just try and get as much information as you can.
Yeah,
you know,
I
that's
think
what I did.
that's the key thing as well, like communication and networking. I think that's the main thing with Freelancer, because say if you go and shadow someone else, or you connect with someone who's also a graphic designer or copywriter, you just get into general chit chat, or overhear someone saying, "Oh yeah, I charge £200 a day for that," and then you start to think, "Wait, hang on, I'm only charging £50. Am I at that level? Am I better? Can I charge more?"
Yeah.
So that takes time. When you're first starting out, you won't have a clue. But I would say just research online, do some stuff for free, and also it depends on the client's budget as well. So, but yeah, there's some really useful resources online from loads of different creators that go into, like, obviously the art of negotiation and how to know your worth when you're first starting out. But yeah, it is difficult, but yeah, obviously you're just starting out, so I won't focus on it. I won't worry about it too much, really. That will just naturally happen over time, where you'll just get an idea of your value and where you sit in that bracket of pricing.
You know, and I think as well, there's always going to be, no matter what you do, and you know what, if you are a freelancer or if you know going to work in house, there's always going to be mistakes that you make. You know, you might overcharge a project, you might undercharge, and it's completely fine to make those mistakes, because that's how you learn. So I think don't beat yourself up if you know, let's say you've done a free project and you thought, actually, I should have charged for that. Don't think, oh, you know, that's it, my freelance journey's over, because it's not. You know, I can guarantee everyone who's started out as a freelancer, even still when they're like 5 years into their career, like, you will always make mistakes, and that's how you learn. So it's completely fine to, you know, do that, and definitely don't beat yourself up about it, because everyone does it, I can assure you that. But yeah, I just wanted to talk as well about self-motivation, because this is something that I've personally struggled with, going self-employed, because I think especially from transitioning, if you are, you know, in a full-time job or from uni, I guess it's different if you're at uni, but I think specifically if you have been working full-time, transitioning into self-employment, it is a massive step. And I think you have to prepare for that step, that you really do have to have a level of self-motivation, and you need to get up and go out there and email people, and, you know, get yourself up and ready, and actually being able to have that routine for your own self-employment.
I also think if you it's a bit of a red flag, really. If you can't motivate yourself to get up in the morning, and you're not determined, and you don't want to put the hours in, and you think this is a chore, maybe self-employment's not for you.
Yeah.
Or maybe what you're doing self-employed isn't for you. Because when I first started out, I was so hungry to get work. I was so passionate about my creation, my profession. I wanted to get better. I wanted to see progression, that I didn't need motivation. I would just work like a dog, basically. And I'd be doing work, or, I mean, I'm not saying I'd still have free time and everything like that. And I think there's this pressure as well, especially talking about social media, of, oh my God, you have to work 24 hours a day and you have to hustle and grind. But it's not, you know, balance, because you will burn out. But what I'm saying is, if you're at that level where you're literally struggling to just motivate yourself to do some work or to watch it, to learn, that's a red flag for me. So maybe self-employment's not for you. So
Yeah, agreed. And I think, you know, if you have tried it and it's not for you, that's completely fine. You know, it's not for everyone.
It's not, no.
Not everyone's cut out to be this entrepreneur. And I think, especially on TikTok, I've seen this, you know, quit your day job and go into self-employment and you'll make 6 figures. It's that, first of all, that's not the reality for everyone, because it just, I mean,
it's not the reality,
it might happen.
Full stop.
Yeah, you're lucky if that happens. But, you know, in these stories, yeah, that's great. But it's probably, I'm going to be honest, it's not realistic. So that's first and foremost. And secondly, if you do try it and it doesn't work out, or it's not for you, and you don't have that, I want to go out and start my own business, that's completely fine as well. It's fine to have a 9-to-5 job in an environment that you love. You know, my previous role, I really enjoyed it, and there was nothing really wrong with it. I just wanted to, you know, start flow. But yeah, I think if it is something you're considering and, it isn't for you, that's completely fine.
Yeah,
But
what I would also say is that you could start being a freelance. I initially started freelance because I enjoyed it, but it was just to build a portfolio to get a job. Ultimately, it failed because I could not sustain myself. So I had a part-time job working at Morrison's, and this will be good for people really out there who might be in my position or looking to do this. And I wasn't getting enough work and enough clients to upgrade my equipment to produce better work than to move up to that next bracket. So I hit a peak really of, this is the best my portfolio is ever going to get. I'm struggling to get new clients. I'm on minimum wage at Morrison's, and another thing is, as much as I enjoyed self-employment, I wanted experience at a company. I wanted to upskill. I wanted to learn new things and see what, and get that client relate. And obviously, since having a job, my client relations have improved massively. Key thing for me is, if you start a self-employed business and it fails, you're going to learn so much from that.
Yeah.
So much, not only to take into a job, because it might get you a job because you built a portfolio, but then if you go into that job and think, I don't like that job, you've got, where you went wrong. So you can go back and start up again. Like you say, the key thing is you can always start up.
Yeah.
People have businesses, they fail, they start a new business, they fail, they start a new business. You will find with most successful people, the first business they ever created wasn't a success, or it took years and years and years to get there. So that's another piece of advice that I would say is key.
Yeah, and that is it, especially when you're so young and you're just starting out, even if you're not young and you're still starting out. But, there's never that, right, I'm going to be a freelancer, that's it for the rest of my life. No, that's fine. If you want to go, as Jacob said, if you want to go back into a full-time role, that's fine. And, for me, I enjoyed both. Well, I've only been freelancing for a month at the minute, but so far I've enjoyed both.
And I know people who do a full-time job and they're that passionate about what they do. When they have time, they'll still pick up freelance work.
Yeah.
Some people just don't want to run their own business.
Yeah.
It's hard. Some people like the 9 till 5. They like having the weekend. That's another thing. When you freelance and you'll do a lot of work at the weekend.
Yeah.
You just have to see, I went really high then. You just have to see. You just have to see what what you enjoy the most, really. But I'd recommend, if you're struggling to get a job, which was the whole point of the podcast, try it. And even if it's not full-time self-employment, build up some work, whether it's client work, just do it for yourself.
Yeah. So, just to wrap up this episode, I just want to ask you, first of all, is there any key mistakes that you've personally experienced as a freelancer that you would advise, people who are starting out to try and avoid, or maybe just look out for? I know we've obviously mentioned the whole undervaluing yourself, and I think that's probably the main one for freelance. Don't know your worth, and be confident in what you are charging, because you are good enough.
I think a key mistake for me is giving up too early. There's a lot of pressure, especially when you're younger, to get a full-time job, to make your parents proud, to act like a normal human being. If you've got if you know deep down and you've got a gut feeling that you want to go for something, you can make it a success. Even if it doesn't work out after a year and 6 months, just keep going. Obviously, it might get to a point where you think, oh my God, I need to actually stop because I can't live. But yeah, you never know what's around the corner. So that's a key lesson for me, really, is just keep going and keep building, and don't give up that easily. I know it's difficult, but yeah, and obviously we have discussed the getting tripped up with people trying to take advantage of you when you're just starting out, and it's difficult because you're not going to be that confident initially. I used to work freelance as a sports videographer, and when I used to walk into a gym or do video, it's just. But what I would say is, they might obviously be able to tell you're young, but they don't know how much years of experience you've got. They don't know what you studied. They don't know how good you are. I know people who look really young who are 30, who charging thousands of pounds for videos, but if they weren't confident in themselves, you could easily think, he can't be worth a lot because he's not very. So you need to almost put on a demeanour, really, and don't be false. I'm not saying be false, but I just say, like you say, key thing is just to be confident. Try to be confident, yeah. But apart from that, really, again, we've already discussed the organisation part, and I think those are the three key things, really: organisation, self-worth, and research. But yeah, I think we've gone over them, really, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of anything else that was, not giving up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
Perseverance.
it can be so easy as well to fall into that. You know, I've tried it for a month. I've not really found any clients, or it's not working out. I'm just going to give up, because it does take time, and you've got to prepare for the fact that it might take a little bit of time to, you know, get into that routine and find clients, and yeah, really build that network of people that you're going to work with. I'd just give it a go, and if you are considering it, just try and reach out to as many people as you can and get advice. But I think the main thing for me is just go for it.
I would say enjoyment as well, because since going into a full-time role, looking back, like in the actual moment when I was doing freelancing, I was so head focused and headstrong about I need to get more work, I need to get more clients, I need to upgrade my camera. Like, looking back, the stuff that I did and the people that I met and what I was doing was really enjoyable, but perhaps in the time I was too focused about the future that I didn't actually enjoy the present and what I was doing. So I'd say a key thing is just enjoy and learn as well, especially if you're young. So yeah, that's what I would say too.
And, you know, I just want to ask you, as being someone that's gone out there, you know, self-employed as a freelancer, and from someone who's actually worked full-time for an agency, which one do you prefer?
Well, I might lose my job.
I guess that is a tricky question.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, I mean, there's pros, obviously, that, like, my agency working for an agency is similar to being self-employed, because we deal with clients on a daily basis and it always rotates. We're constantly looking for work, clients come and go. So it is like being a freelancer on a full-time salary anyway. Obviously, there's pros and cons to being full-time and freelance. The biggest pro for me is I love meeting new people. When you're working with an agency, obviously you have the same clients. They do dip in and out, but I do love to explore, travel. And it's brilliant going out there and travelling, going to different locations, meeting different people. Obviously, if you're a graphic designer or you sit in your home, it might not be the same. But yeah, that's what I enjoyed about videography. I'd just say the key thing is just really know and try and drill down what you enjoy. I did this in the new year, just thinking, what do I actually enjoy? Am I doing this just because people say that you're supposed to do this, and because this is what I want to portray to people that I am doing, or is this actually my passion? So yeah, are you just being a Facebook ads expert or a copywriter because that's what that's what looks good to your friends, or are you doing it because you're actually passionate about it? I know I went a bit off topic there about working for an agency, but I'd say maybe try both. Try both and see which one you prefer, because there's no, and obviously if you jump straight into freelancing and you think this is definitely for me and I'm getting somewhere, just stick with it. You don't need to have a full-time role. But yeah, I mean, people, especially when you're young, people jump in and out of jobs all the time and try new things. So I'll just say try as many things as possible to see what you enjoy.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I worked at an agency as well prior to, you know, being self-employed. And it is quite similar, to be honest, because you are obviously working with different clients. And I will do a future episode. I actually have this planned to talk about in-house versus an agency, because they are very different, and they do look very different.
Yeah, they're so different. Yeah.
So I think that's another episode
the key, yeah,
to
I mean,
talk about
to be honest, like say freelancing and agency work is very similar. There's just less flexibility, obviously. But
you've also got the benefits of being with a company, I guess, because you know that you're always going to have that regular income.
Yeah, but working in-house, for example, if you work for a company that's on the stock market or any big company, Amazon, Gymshark, Reel Mall off, wherever it is, like a SME or a big company, you're going to be working in-house on that one thing forever. And obviously I've got no experience, so I don't know what that's like, but agency work is similar to being freelance, for example, because all a freelancer is the step below an agency. You know, and I would say if you're a freelancer, the end goal for you is, some people would just obviously just love to be a freelancer and just do solo, riding solo. That's cool if you like that. But most people's aim when you're a freelancer is to hire people, because that's how you level up. And then you are effectively an agency. If you hire one or two people, you are an agency. So an agency, all an agency is someone who is a freelancer or an entrepreneur, and they've just hired other freelancers or people full time just to so they don't need to do as much, or because they've got more clients. So that's why it is so similar. Just depends what you prefer. And then obviously the whole different ball game is being hired as a graphic designer, copywriter, whatever your field is, just working on the same thing every day in-house, for example, for say a Gymshark or Pretty Little Thing, maybe not mention them at the moment, but do you know what I mean? Something like that is totally different, and I don't know about that, but all I can say is both have got pros and cons, and I've learned quite a lot from doing both.
And I think as well, specifically marketing, if you are looking at, maybe you're in that phase of, I kind of do, freelance interests me a little bit, but I'm not actually too sure if I want to jump straight into it. I've just graduated. I kind of want to get a full-time role first. Honestly, I would really advise to look at an agency if freelance does interest you. I just worked for a local agency, really small, like working for small businesses. And that year that I worked there enabled me to just gain so much experience and also exposure to freelancers, because we hired a lot of videographers like yourself, and we built up that sort of list of what they charge, and I sort of had that exposure of, right, okay, this is what freelance sort of looks like, and I actually seen firsthand how they communicate with people and agencies and businesses. So yeah, I think that is a way to get into it, I guess, if you are looking at becoming a freelancer and you're sort of not sure and you want to gain a bit of industry experience first. I'd really recommend to go to an agency. There's loads out there, as you probably already know. Some big ones that probably you could try and get into, and then also never ever rule out a local agency, because even though they might be small and they might work for smaller clients, you'll still gain that really valuable experience. And I definitely did when I worked at an agency. I still was able to gain a lot of different skills in all of the different areas of marketing, email, copywriting, pitches, just loads of different things. So yeah, that is definitely a way to sort of get exposure and get skills as a sort of freelancer, I guess, but even though you're not. So yeah, I guess that's sort of our stories, and more specifically Jacob's and his insight and advice. Do you have any sort of last words or last pieces of advice for anyone out there?
I think obviously if you've always liked the thought of going self-employed, go for it. Learn, grow, make mistakes, and yeah, obviously if you end up just working full time, that's completely fine as well. So yeah, just enjoy it, guys. That's what my advice, and don't stress, because life is a roller coaster, as they say.
Oh yeah, thanks. What a motivational quote to end on.
Yeah, I'm a motivational guru. So.
But yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Jay.
Right.
Really appreciate it, and it's been great to hear your insight, as being a freelancer. And I think a lot of Flow's audience and followers will really value it, because I know a lot of you guys are interested in it. And yeah, so thank you. And for anyone that is wanting to learn more about freelance, I am going to be documenting my journey with it, and producing more content surrounding freelance. So be sure to follow me on socials and keep an eye out for future content about freelance. And of course, if you do have any questions or anything from this episode that you really want to ask me, always DM me on Instagram, because I'm always happy to help out and respond as soon as I can. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today's episode. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and you've been able to take something away from it. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon or morning wherever you are, and that is it for today's episode.